Guys, Vince right here. Listen, Xbox emulation is pretty cool. Okay, I'm just saying that because I want you to know that just to make you believe that I actually did play it. So when I said the word, oh, the E word, oh my, he's an emulation, oh pirates, shut up. Okay, because let me tell you, emulation is God tier. There, you're welcome. And especially when it comes down to Xbox games, you don't have to play. When I installed the Xbox emulator, I knew that I had to check out one game, one series that I have never really witnessed or checked out ever before. Because this one right here, it is like like the one that I always from a kid, from seeing it, because I was always in the PlayStation side. And no way I have no business playing this game. For the longest time, I always been like Xbox, ugh, all that stuff. But this one right here, this one was my jam. I love Halo. And I only played it and finished it like a month ago. And my goodness, I enjoyed it, okay? It was the game that I definitely see that many people within the Halo fandom was writing love letters for because how good this game is. I love the action, the shooting mechanics between it. Doesn't get tiring in most parts. Is it still a classic? I don't know. We're about to get into that because you're watching this video. What's up? So here we are, actually, here I am, as during the heat, as I'm, finishing this game and really trying to, it fills in those hunger. Okay, for me, it feels, it gives me a good fix when it comes down to shooting games and space shooters. If there's one thing about the Halo series that draw me in, it is a very well-known title that is well established when it comes down to the FPS world, when it comes down to shooters. And this is one of those games where I was like, I wanted to witness for myself, and I never had a chance ever, because I always, play Call of Duty, especially during the PS3 days. Call of Duty was kind of like, the game that is definitely the one that is for me, for that I've been playing, that I've always been playing. And it's a game that I really enjoyed a lot more than any other shooters out there. I played SOCOM back in the day, Wolfenstein, but nothing beats when it comes down to even like other games like Brink, Resistance, those old school shooters like during the PS3 days. When it comes down to shooters, Call of Duty was my jam, okay? But now playing Halo, I can definitely see this almost being something that Call of Duty thrives for, because especially during the early years, we're talking about 2002 or 2003, we're talking about decades, okay? Like 3 decades of a generation, that this game is well established to what it can make. And it made a good first impression. And I can see that through combat involved, of just how the combat, shooters and stuff like that, you just go willy-nilly and just works, at least for me. The bombs and just using the cannons and using all these weapons that just works, especially using the enemy's weapons, the ones that I just don't really care of using. I sometimes use the enemy's weapons, especially the laser. I use that probably more just in case if one of my bullets just runs out on the human side, the Halo Master Chief's weapons, of just even though those are good for utilizing of navigating and knowing where to go, I sometimes use the laser weapons from the enemies because it adds a little bit more kick. And there's this kind of cadence within this shooter that I can't really go into because I'm not much of a shooter, okay? I'm into platforms and puzzles, but when it comes down to, FPS games, a lot of times my mind is okay, just be, distinct, have I'm all about rhythm. I'm all about rhythm when it comes to games, especially games that I grew up with. A lot of times I have to rely on rhythm to actually finish them, to actually know where I'm going and stuff like that. But since this is Halo, and since this is something that I never grew up with, and I'm only just playing this right now, and witnessing all of this content that Halo has to give, from the world, from the story, from everything else that it's placing to be. Like it's something that I just, am witnessing for the first time and just getting familiar because I seen here bits and pieces. Understand that I watched Red versus Blue from Rooster Teeth, a little bit. I seen so much Halo content during like the early Achievement Hunter days of Rooster Teeth. And they always talk about Halo. There's fans of Halo. I just never understand what that is. All I know is that, oh, it's a video game. Okay. I know Master Chief and that's it. But this game goes into like, like who, what is it? I don't want to say the, Corona, but for some reason I call her Corona. I don't know. The lady, the blue lady, like, I'm not much familiar within the Halo world, but we witnessed of like, the headmaster of just like the whole entire operation, something his name is, okay. And Master Chief's come in, actually, we're being taught by a tutorial, which is something that is common because right now I'm in Halo 2. And also I pretty much installed Halo 3 just for like a, mid test and actually check that out a little bit. Okay. There was literally a moment where I was like, yo, all Halos, give them to me, all them Halos, including Halo 4. I keep hearing bad things about Halo 4. I keep hearing, especially when it was first came out, I'm like, what is up with Halo 4? What are y'all talking about? Okay. I gotta know what that is about Halo 4 and, hopefully I get there. But this for the longest time as I'm witnessing this game itself, like the Halo always had like, this side of like, tutorial where it's so short and sweet. And it fits well to actually, go into the game more. But it always somewhat like I noticed this from other Halos that, there's a disaster that erupts. And pretty much this is kind of like, one of those games where, you got to fix it and also hopefully try to actually, establish or, something. But despite the story and everything, to be honest, like it's always about the gameplay that I sort of cared a little bit more of because, having that, it's more thrilling itself. But again, like the situations that you're in and also especially the dark scenes, that scene where the crawlers, things like I hate finding those things, those crawling enemies that you witness in the jungle and the rainforest planet. Though that one gets heavy, but it also goes into dark places of like, who died or whatever. And it turns into like almost like a horror, FPS where it's just, you have to defeat all these things and they're just crawling, they're just coming in. And there's scenes where it's like, memorable itself. I mean, especially the rover or whatever it's called, the thing you drive. That's something that I keep hearing about Halo, but here I am finally driving and I understand why, because it's so convenient. I always seen gameplays of Halo. I always seen, so much of this game from the media, but never actually witnessing it. And as I'm witnessing it, it felt rich. It felt like this could have been the game that it could have been the game that could have replaced, for example, My Love for like Jak and Daxter or Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank. It easily could have replaced them. But because I grew up with PlayStation, that's usually the games that I grew up with. But Halo could have easily replaced all of that, for sure. Okay, and for this game, just to witness it in action and hearing how, it's sort of like somewhat ended, like, later on the years, especially with Halo Infinite. I wanted to play Halo Infinite. I don't have the computer or the specs to actually play the game. But I looked at it and I was like, one day I'll play Halo. And this is kind of like one of those, I guess, achievements, those fulfillment dreams that I'm having where I finally witnessed Halo and then, it was worth it. It was worth, the wait or something like that. Even though I honestly, personally, I would be like, I wish I can play it earlier or something like that. To hear what everyone was talking about. The Xbox showcase where they had the Halo theme of an orchestra to play in their showcase. That could have been more impacting if I witnessed that when I did play Halo. Because the song is still stuck in my head. That orchestra, that when you enter in the game, felt so HD. It felt so HD for a game released in 2003 or something. And it just felt like so high quality. The gameplay itself is the highlight, but man, the seeing the world and seeing the outskirts of the planets and all that, it just felt like an early. It the same way I felt about Outer Worlds. I played Outer Worlds, and my God, mind was blown of just seeing the world and just seeing how witnessing all of this in full HD, but witnessing this game, like like it's another sort of just like it's another thing of just having to have that fulfilled experience while playing it from beginning to end and witnessing it. Like that's one thing that I love when it comes down to these kind of medias and really preserving them. And thankfully Halo is a big enough series to preserve, but there's so many other series that had worlds that are sort of bigger than this, and that is like more advanced and wider. And how can you ever witness them if they're just like never seen the day of lights? It just made me think about that. It made me think about the moments that I actually witnessed, like Jak and Daxter, and also seeing the world of that. The same way I'm witnessing, like just seeing the lakes and seeing the, like going through the levels and stuff until we get into the ships of the enemy base. Then, pretty much it goes into like, darker areas. But those moments where you navigate and you try to find where you go, because it really doesn't show you where you go within the game. You kind of have to actually have to find your own way to really, maybe it does, maybe if you have the gun, or maybe there's some part of it. There's many parts where I got lost. But I always tend to find myself going around. Like, I never thought that you would go into like this certain base and it goes into different chapters of like, getting out. There's many times where I would be ambushed, and then it's all up to you to. This is definitely a shooter that's not for anyone that is like, like beginners or whatever. Maybe you could be a beginner and you could play it like, relentless amount of times, because it does save state you like in certain places, so you don't have to lose your progress when you die in certain levels, like start all over again or whatever. But it's definitely not for like it doesn't go soft. It doesn't go soft with the shooting mechanics and what it can actually where it can go with the amount of enemies that it puts into your like in your vision that you have to eliminate, because there's a good amount, there's a lot. You go in and out, and pretty much it seems like it would be a lot of work itself, but just completing all that, that's where the fulfillment, and that's where my love for the game itself, yeah, you hear it right. I really love this game, and that's where I like it, because it's one of those games where it's like, man, how did I take the tank out? How did I take all these ships out? How did I take all these enemies out so easily? But it just does. And I played this with Stefan. We played together playing it split screen mode. Now that was an experience. I enjoyed it. We were playing it for like hours, like probably almost like 4 hours of going to different bases and stuff. And it still had more. Like playing more than one playthrough for sure, because it does fill you up like, oh man, I probably spent like, 3 hours in this. I think I'm good for a couple of, and then I come back, it's like, okay, let's do this, it's just that it fills you that hunger when it comes down to this, game, and maybe I can say the same for other shooters, especially Call of Duty, but for Halo, man, I enjoyed it so much, and I can't wait to actually finish like, Halo 2 and see where that goes, and Halo 3 and all the other Halos after that, And I keep hearing about Halo Reach. What is up with that? That's also another game that I want to witness. But here's my review. This is my thoughts of the game. So hopefully you enjoyed. And see you when I see you. One love and a peace.